What's good, YouTube? It's been almost a couple years since I last did a mixing tutorial on this channel, and I've changed the way that I've mixed since then, so I figured I'd go ahead and do an updated mixing tutorial. In this video, I'm going to show y'all how to mix your beats so they hit harder and they sound more professional. And I think that's enough said, so let's just jump right into it. So I've got my first beat here. I'm going to show y'all two different beats. The first one's going to be a sample, and I'll be showing y'all how to mix drums relative to the sample. And then the second FOP is going to be mixing drums relative to other melodies. So for the first FLP, I've gone ahead and just reset the mixer here. And so the first thing that you want to do when making your beat is going to your 808 and making sure that the velocities are all the way up. Typically they'll look like this when you first start laying down the notes. You can go through, just left click, drag them all the way across. So you click and hold and drag to the left. So the second thing I want to do, this is especially important for samples that have sub basses, bass guitars, any sort of bass sound to them, is cutting out the lows so you have space for your 808. So I'm gonna go ahead and open up an EQ here. I'm gonna start by rolling off the lows, so just pulling this band here on the left all the way to the bottom, and I'm just gonna keep dragging it to the right until I've cut off enough of the bass to leave room for the 808. I think I'll go ahead and leave it around here. Typically this cut is in the 100 Hertz to 300 Hertz range. If you go too high, it gets a little too thin. And if you leave it too low, you're still leaving that sub bass in there. So somewhere in that 100 to 300 range is usually pretty good. And also, depending on the beat and the sample, you might want to use one of these cut presets. So you want to drag this right band all the way to the right so you're not cutting off any of the treble. And then just take the left band here and do the same thing. Just keep moving it to the right until you've cut off the sub bass. So I'll stop it around like this 130, 150 range. So you can hear there's a slight difference between the two. This one just straight up cuts out all these frequencies to the left. And this one leaves a slight remnants of it. Usually this comes down to personal preference. I typically roll off the lows because I don't want to cut off too much of the lows like this one. Some beats have a really strong bass, so you might have to do this. Usually this one gets the job done, so I'm gonna roll with this one for this beat. Also, if you do have some muddiness in your sample, you can open up another EQ. I usually like to take the second or third band here, pull it up a little bit, and then scroll down a few times on my mouse, and that kind of thins this out, and I can find some unwanted frequencies with this. So I could go right here. There's a little bit of unwanted frequencies here, but it's not a whole lot. So I'm just gonna go ahead and scroll down one more. And I'm gonna go to the right here and just move this down vertically. And that'll help clean up the sound just a little bit. And so now what I wanna do is mute every sound, and I'm just going to start by soloing the 808. So I'm just right clicking on the little green light here. And the way that I like to mix my drums is I'll start with the loudest sound first and work my way down to the quietest sound. So typically your loudest sound in a trap beat is going to be your 808 or kick. Since we don't have kick in this beat, I'm gonna start with the 808. Usually I have this hit around -3 to 0. Typically I try to get it as close to 0 without going over. I'm gonna move it down one mouse click here. The next thing that I like to throw in is the main snare or a clap, whatever you use that hits on the third beat of every measure here. And typically the loudest I'd like to have this is around -6. I'll let it go a little over. Next I'll go to my hi-hat, which I typically like to pan to the left. That's just personal preference. All the pannings that I do are usually just personal preference. And the hi-hats, I think I'm gonna leave them around -9. Then I'll move to my counter snare. And typically I like to pan this to the right. Again, personal preference, you can kind of switch it around. The only thing with panning is you don't want to have too many things pan to the left or right. So for example, I couldn't pan my counter snare, hi-hat, open hat, and main snare and perk all to the right side. I'd want there to be some sort of balance. You don't want it to get too lopsided. Going back to the leveling here, this counter snare, I'll probably keep it around the same loudness as the hi-hat. And then now for my last sound, which is the open hat. This one, I typically don't have a specific range I like to keep it in. I kind of just mix it based on how loud all the other stuff is. So this one's gonna sit around -15. So now that we got all the drums mixed, I'm gonna go ahead and unmute everything and bring in the melody. I'm just gonna move this slider until it has the right amount of loudness to the rest of the drums. And getting the right level with this relative to the drums takes a little bit of practice, but over time with practice, you'll be able to get a feel for it. So I'm gonna move this down a little bit, probably like 3 or 4 mouse scroll ticks. So now the peak of the melodies, or the sample in this case, is around -9. So now that we got all that leveled, let's go to the master track here. I'm gonna start first by throwing on this basic EQ here. Typically I'll move this up to about 3 + 3 decibels, and this band right here up to about 1.5, and this one somewhere between 0 and 1. And you can see all these values in the top left, like where all the file, add, edit, all that stuff is. And this is the type of effect that it has on your beat, so I'll play it without it and then turn it on. And this is with the EQ. It makes the highs and some of those lows a little louder, so it just makes the drums pop a little more. Then after that, I throw on a soft clipper, just default. I don't change any of the settings here. And honestly, you could leave it right here, but I like to take it a little bit further, and I'll throw some Maximus on the master here, and I'll go to the Master Aid 1 preset, and immediately just go to the bands here. So just the default Master Aid preset sounds like this, which is cool, but the lows and highs are a little too loud here. So first thing I do is I take the lows and I drop them down, and then just kind of level out the rest accordingly. And again, this is kind of by ear. And once I've leveled that out, I would go to the master here and switch this to off. And we've already got a super loud mix here, so I'm not gonna change anything. But if this mix was quieter, say if it was around like the -3, 0, this kind of range, I would turn the post up like 1 notch and then move it back to comp off. This beat doesn't really need it because the sample's already loud and we mix the drums kind of loud. One quick thing before I jump to the next FLP, if you want to keep at least like an intro part where you have a sub bass, what you can do is select the section where you want your sub bass to still be there. So right click and drag, and then go to the EQ where you rolled off the lows, go to the right here, right click on it and hit create automation clip, and then deselect this and then hit Control B to duplicate it. Left click on one of the clips and hit make unique, and then the clip where you want the bass to be heard, move that all the way down. So now the section where the automation is off or all the way down is where you're going to be able to hear the bass, and the section where the automation's all the way up, there'll be no sub bass. And once you've already put one down, you don't have to keep placing it down. It just stays at this mix level until you change it back, like right here. So let's go ahead to the next FLP. All right, so we got the second FLP open here. And so the mixing strategy is more or less going to be the same, except we're gonna start by leveling out the sample. The basis is kind of the same, where you wanna start with your loudest sounds and work your way down to the quietest sounds. So for my sample, the loudest sound is my Reese bass here. So I'm gonna start this out by putting it up to probably about -9 or -12, kind of that range. And then the next loudest sound that I have is probably this synth in track 1. Put this up to like -12-ish. Next one is probably this bell here in track 4. By the way, this doesn't have to be in perfect order. This is just kind of guessing which one is louder than the other. I'll keep this kind of around the same, -12. Same thing with this synth right here. This one's really minor. I think I'll probably just let this sit around like -21-ish. Again, there's no real like hard and fast rules when it comes to this. This is just me kind of hearing it together in my headphones and just estimating what I think would be a good level here. And another thing, this kind of comes into play with sound selection too, but you want to make sure that the sounds that you're combining don't really overlap with each other. They don't compete with each other too much. The only ones that I do have that compete with each other are probably these first two, or the second one is quieter than the first one. They're kind of in the same frequency range, but this one gets muted out, so it ends up working out. Now I will throw in the last sound, which is this flute. And so I'm just gonna run through this loop one more time and just make sure everything sounds right to me in terms of how the sound is balanced. I'll go ahead and make some final adjustments and then we'll mix the drums. Alright, so that sounds good to me. And now I'm gonna go ahead and start mixing the drums. It's going to be the same strategy as last time. We're going to start with our loudest sounds, which is our bass sounds, and move our way down to the quieter ones. And so I'm going to start with the 808 again. And since we have a kick on this one, I'm going to mix the 808 a little quieter. So I'm probably going to have this hit around -3 this time, instead of 0. Then we'll go to the kick, have that hit around the same range, like -6 to -3. And then we'll move to our snare. Keep that like -6. Hi-hats, same deal. Keep it around -9. The rolls put it up a little over -9, but that's fine. And then we'll go to our counter snare, pan it to the right. Keep it in that -9, maybe -6 range. And then lastly, we'll go to our open hat. I'm gonna go ahead and pan this to the right too. And similar to last time, it sounds good around -15. And so now I'm going to go ahead and unmute everything and make any tweaks that I want to any specific sounds before we do anything with the master track. Alright, so this snare, the counter snare, sounds a little too loud, so I'm going to move it down a little bit. Just by one tick here. And our main melody sounds a little too loud here, so I'm going to go ahead and move it down a little bit. Same thing with that contact flute. And bell. So I had mixed the sample and the melodies a little bit too loud, so I just went through and lowered a couple of them a few ticks. If you want to make that easier, what you can do is just click on one of these, hold Control and Shift and click on all of these that you want to, and you can move all of the sliders at once if it's mixed correctly and you just want to move all the sounds down. For this, I think I'll just keep it as is though. So now that we got that, I'm going to select the loudest part of the beat right here, which is just the hook. We're going to go to the master track and put on the same chain that we did last time. So start off with this EQ. I'm gonna go to the last band here, move it up 2 mouse ticks or to about +3. Go to the second band, move it up 1 mouse tick or about +1.5. This one right here, we'll slide it to be a little less than this one, so between 0 and 1 somewhere. Then I'm gonna go ahead, add a default soft clipper. Again, we're not changing anything with it. And so this is what we got before adding Maximus. Alright, so that's sounding pretty decent. Now I'm gonna go ahead and throw on some Maximus. And again, go to the Master Aid 1 preset, then go to the band section, and we're going to level out each of the low, mid, and highs respectively. I'm noticing a few things that I want to go back and change here. Most notably, I want to make this snare a little bit louder. I want to make the flute a tad bit quieter and this main melody a little quieter. Alright, so that's going to wrap it up for this video. Appreciate y'all watching and sticking around to the end. Hope y'all found this helpful and were able to take something away from it. That's going to do it for me in this video, and I'll see you on the next one.